The champagne flute felt cold against my palm as I stood in the corner of my sister's living room, watching pastel balloons sway above a table laden with gifts wrapped in expensive paper. Vanessa's laughter rang out across the crowd of her influencer friends, each one holding their phone at the perfect angle to capture her glowing smile. The words still echoed in my head from 10 minutes ago, sharp and cutting despite her sugar-sweet tone. Well, at least one of us figured out what really matters in life. Maya's still married to her job. I mean, a surgeon? So noble. But where's the actual life? The husband? The home? The family? She'd said it loud enough for everyone to hear, her hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly, that same knowing smile she'd worn our entire lives when she wanted everyone to see how much better she was doing than me. Her friends had laughed, that polite kind of laughter that meant they'd learned not to question Vanessa's narrative. Mom had patted her arm approvingly. I took a sip of the sparkling water I'd been nursing and said nothing. Because what would be the point? This was Vanessa's day, Vanessa's moment, Vanessa's stage. It always had been. 4 years older than me, Vanessa had always been the golden child, the pretty one, the social one, the one who knew how to work a room, how to make everyone love her, how to turn even the smallest achievement into a production worthy of applause. When she'd pivoted from her failed acting career to becoming a lifestyle influencer 3 years ago, our parents had called it entrepreneurial genius. Never mind that I'd been in medical school, working 30-hour shifts, literally learning to hold human hearts in my hands. Maya, honey, did you at least bring a gift? Mom appeared at my elbow, her eyes scanning the table. I don't see one with your name. It's the set of organic cotton baby clothes, Mom. The cream-colored box with the sage ribbon. Oh, she looked disappointed. Vanessa was hoping for something from her registry. The luxury stroller, maybe? Or the designer diaper bag? She showed me what you were looking at online. My sister had been tracking my browsing history. Of course she had. I'd logged into the baby registry from her Wi-Fi last week, when I'd stopped by to drop off some medical journals she'd asked to borrow for content research. She'd probably never even opened them. The organic clothes are from a small business run by a NICU nurse I work with, I said evenly. I thought Vanessa would appreciate supporting another working mom. Mom's expression said clearly that she did not think Vanessa would appreciate that at all. Well, it's the thought that counts, I suppose. Though I do think at your age, you should be thinking about these things for yourself. Vanessa was married at 26. I'm aware, Mom. And now she's starting a family. With Marcus. Such a catch. That one. Comes from a good family. Runs his father's commercial real estate company. Stable. Reliable. Everything a woman could want. Unlike what? I wanted to ask. Unlike me. With my irregular hours and my career that meant sometimes I couldn't make it to family dinners because I was in the middle of a 7-hour surgery. Unlike the life I'd chosen that didn't fit into their neat little box of what success was supposed to look like. But I didn't say any of that. I'd learned a long time ago that defending myself only made it worse. I should probably go, I said instead. I have an early shift tomorrow. You're always working, Mom sighed. When are you going to take time to actually live, Maya? Find someone? Settle down? Look at your sister. She has balance. She has it all figured out. I glanced across the room at Vanessa, who was posing for photos with her husband Marcus, his hand on her belly, both of them beaming at the camera. Her life did look perfect from the outside. The beautiful apartment in the trendy neighborhood, the seemingly doting husband, the carefully curated Instagram feed, documenting every moment of her pregnancy journey. She had 200,000 followers who hung on her every word about morning sickness and nursery decor. What they didn't see were the cracks. The way Marcus checked his phone constantly during family dinners. The slight edge of desperation in Vanessa's voice when she talked about her engagement numbers dropping. The fact that she'd called me crying 3 times in the last month about feeling overwhelmed, only to act like we barely knew each other in public. I'll think about it, Mom, I said, because it was easier than arguing. I made my way toward the door, stopping to give Vanessa a hug goodbye. She barely looked at me, already turning back to her guests, back to her performance. This was her world, and I was just a background character in it. As I drove home through the Portland streets, I should have felt worse than I did. I should have felt that familiar ache of being the disappointment, the one who didn't measure up, the sister who was always somehow less than. But instead, I felt my lips curve into a small smile. Because what my family didn't know, what I hadn't told anyone except my closest friends from the hospital, was that 3 months ago, I'd closed on a penthouse in the Pearl District, 22nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, 2,000 square feet of pure luxury. I'd paid cash, every penny of it earned from my own work, my own hands, my own late nights and early mornings and years of sacrifice. And what they really didn't know was that I wasn't alone in it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. I'd met James a year and a half ago, and it wasn't at some glamorous event or through a dating app or any of the ways Vanessa would have considered acceptable. It was at a free clinic in Southeast Portland where I volunteered on my days off. He'd been there volunteering too, teaching a financial literacy class to families in the community. I'd noticed him immediately, not because he was handsome, though he was, but because of the way he listened when people talked. Really listened. Like their words mattered. Like their struggles were important. In a world where everyone seemed to be waiting for their turn to speak, he was actually paying attention. We'd started talking during a break, comparing notes about the people we were trying to help. He told me about his work, how he'd built a fintech startup that helped low-income families build credit and access better financial services, how he'd sold it 2 years ago for enough money that he never had to work again, but couldn't quite figure out what to do with himself if he wasn't solving problems. I'd told him about surgery, about the satisfaction of fixing something broken, about how every day I got to quite literally save lives. Must be nice, he'd said, and there was no sarcasm in it, just genuine admiration. Having that clear purpose, that direct impact. Your work has impact too, I'd pointed out. Financial stability can save lives in different ways. He'd smiled at that, and something had shifted between us. We'd started meeting for coffee after our volunteer shifts, then dinner, then weekend hikes in the gorge. James was unlike anyone I'd dated before. He didn't care that I made good money as a surgeon because he had his own success and didn't need to measure himself against mine. He didn't get insecure when I had to cancel plans for emergency surgeries. He understood that my work was part of who I was, not something I was doing until I found a husband to take care of me. 6 months in, he'd asked me to move in with him. He had a nice house in the West Hills, but I'd hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because I'd worked so hard to be independent, to prove I didn't need anyone to take care of me. Moving into his house felt like giving that up somehow. What if we found something together? He'd suggested. Not mine, not yours, ours. That's when we'd started looking at penthouses. Something neither of us needed but both of us wanted. A space that represented what we were building together, not what we'd had before we met. The place we found was perfect. Modern, bright, with a view that made the whole city feel like it belonged to us. James had offered to pay for all of it, but I'd insisted on going half. In the end, we'd compromised. I'd pay cash for my half from my savings, he'd cover his half, and we'd own it together. 50-50, equal partners. We'd closed on it 3 months ago, just a week before I'd gotten the invitation to Vanessa's baby shower. I hadn't told my family about James, not because I was ashamed, but because I was tired. Tired of my accomplishments being diminished. Tired of everything I did being compared to Vanessa's different choices. Tired of defending my life to people who'd already decided I was doing it wrong. And honestly, part of me liked having something that was just mine. Something they couldn't touch or judge or turn into a competition. The baby shower had been exactly what I'd expected. Mom asking when it would be my turn. Vanessa's friends treating me like the sad single-career woman who'd traded happiness for a job. The subtle and not-so-subtle suggestions that my life was somehow empty because it didn't look like theirs. As I pulled into the underground garage of my building, I felt that familiar sense of peace that came with coming home. I took the elevator up to the 22nd floor, unlocked the door, and stepped into the space James and I had made ours. He was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, music playing softly from the speakers we'd installed throughout the apartment. He turned when he heard me come in, his face lighting up. "How was it?" he asked, already knowing from my expression that it had been rough. "Exactly what I expected," I said, dropping my bag and crossing to where he stood. Mom asked when I'd settle down. Vanessa made sure everyone knew how much more together her life is than mine. The usual. He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself relax against him. "You know you could just tell them," he said gently. It wasn't the first time we'd had this conversation. "I know. I will. Eventually. I pulled back to look at him. "Is it wrong that I want to keep this separate for a while? Keep you separate from all that?" "Not wrong," he assured me. "Just know that I'm ready whenever you are. I'm not a secret because I'm not good enough for them to know about. I'm a secret because you're protecting something that matters to you." I get that. This was why I loved him. Not just because he was successful or kind or handsome, but because he understood. He saw me. The real me. Not the version my family had decided I was. We had dinner on the balcony, watching the sun set over the city, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about the non-profit he was considering starting. I told him about the complex surgery I had scheduled for next week. We made plans for the weekend, debated whether we should finally buy that expensive espresso machine we'd been eyeing, discussed whether we should adopt one cat or two. It was ordinary and perfect, and mine. 3 weeks later, everything changed. I was at the hospital when my phone started blowing up. Text after text, call after call, all from my mother. Maya, call me immediately. Maya, this is serious. Maya. I was in between cases, so I stepped out to call her back, my heart pounding. Had something happened to Dad? To Vanessa? Finally, Mom answered on the first ring. Maya, we need to talk. Right now. What's wrong? Is everyone okay? Is everyone okay? Are you seriously asking me that? Her voice was sharp, angry in a way I'd rarely heard. When were you planning to tell us? My mind raced. Tell them what? About James? About the penthouse? How had she found out? Tell you what, Mom? Don't play games with me. Vanessa is devastated. Absolutely devastated. Do you know what it's like to find out your own sister has been lying to the entire family? I haven't been lying. I just haven't shared everything about my personal life. Not shared? Not shared? Maya, you bought a penthouse. A penthouse! And you didn't think that was worth mentioning? You didn't think your own mother would want to know that her daughter made such a huge purchase? I closed my eyes. How did you find out? Vanessa's friend Brittany lives in the Pearl District. She saw you coming out of the building with some man. Recognized you from Vanessa's Instagram. She looked up the building out of curiosity and found your name on the resident directory. So she told Vanessa. Can you imagine? Your sister having to find out about your life from a friend? Being humiliated like that? I don't see how my purchasing a home humiliates Vanessa. Because you've been acting like you're struggling. Like you're so busy with work you barely have time to live. And meanwhile, you're living in luxury in the Pearl District with some mystery man we've never even met. Do you know how this makes us look? How this makes Vanessa feel? There it was. Not concern for me. Not happiness that I was doing well. Just worry about how it looked. About how it affected Vanessa. Mom, I'm sorry you found out this way. I was planning to tell you. When? When were you planning to tell us? After you got married and didn't invite us to that either. Or were you just going to keep us in the dark forever while you lived your secret life? It's not a secret life. It's my private life. There's a difference. Not to this family. There isn't. Family shares things, Maya. Family doesn't hide major life events from each other. Your father is so hurt. And Vanessa, she's been crying for hours. She feels like you've been making a fool of her, acting poor when you're living better than she is. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I never acted poor. I never complained about money. I just didn't announce my purchases because I didn't think they were anyone's business but mine. Well, now it's everyone's business. Vanessa posted about it on Instagram, about how hurt she is that her own sister excluded her from such a big moment. Her followers are very sympathetic. Of course she did. Of course Vanessa turned this into content, into a way to gain sympathy and engagement from her followers. My privacy invaded, my choices judged, all for her narrative of being the wronged sister. I need to go, Mom. I have a surgery. Don't you dare hang up on me, Maya. We are having a family dinner tomorrow night to discuss this. All of us. Including this mystery man of yours. 6 o'clock. Don't even think about missing it. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the hospital corridor, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. This was exactly why I hadn't told them. Because they couldn't just be happy for me. They had to make it about them. About how it affected them. About how it made them look. I called James during my lunch break. So, I said when he answered. Funny story. My family found out about the penthouse. And you. And now we're summoned to dinner tomorrow night for an inquisition. There was a pause. Then, okay, what time should I pick you up? James, you don't have to do this. I can go alone. Maya. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm not letting you walk into that alone. We're partners, remember? This is our home, our life. I want to be there. I felt something loosen in my chest. It's going to be bad. They're angry. My mom's upset. My sister's playing victim on social media. It's a whole thing. Then it's a good thing I'm good with pressure. I've pitched to venture capitalists. testified before Congress about fintech regulation, and once talked to angry customers' lawyer out of a lawsuit. I think I can handle a family dinner. Despite everything, I smiled. You might regret that confidence. Never, he said. I've got you. We've got this. The next evening, James picked me up from the hospital in his Tesla. He was dressed in dark jeans and a nice button-down, looking relaxed and confident in a way I envied. Ready? He asked as we pulled up to my parents' house in Lake Oswego. Not even a little bit, I admitted. He took my hand. Remember, we're not here to defend our choices. We're here to inform them of our life. Big difference. I nodded, holding on to that thought as we walked up to the door. Mom answered, her smile tight and forced. Maya. And this must be? James Chen, he said, extending his hand with easy confidence. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Patterson. Yes, well, come in. The dining room was set formally, like this was some kind of occasion rather than an ambush. Dad sat at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable. Vanessa and Marcus were already seated. Vanessa's eyes red like she'd been crying, though her makeup was perfect. Everyone, this is James, I said as we took our seats. James, this is my dad Robert, and my sister Vanessa and her husband Marcus. Nice to meet you all, James said pleasantly. There was an awkward silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. So, Maya tells us you two have been seeing each other. For about 1.5 years. Yes, James confirmed. 1.5 years, Mom repeated, her voice tight. And this is the first we're hearing of it. Mom, I started, but Vanessa cut me off. Do you have any idea what it's been like? Her voice was shaky, emotional. Finding out from a friend that my own sister has this entire life I knew nothing about? Being blindsided like that? I'm sorry you found out the way you did, I said carefully. That wasn't my intention. What was your intention then? Vanessa demanded. To hide him from us forever? To hide that you bought a penthouse? To make me look stupid for worrying about you? For thinking you were struggling? I never said I was struggling. You acted like it. You're always too busy for family events, always working, always acting like you barely have time for anything else. Meanwhile, you're living in the Pearl District with your secret boyfriend in some luxury penthouse. Vanessa. I kept my voice calm. Though my heart was racing, I didn't hide James because I was ashamed. I didn't mention the penthouse because I didn't think I needed to report my financial decisions to the family. I work a lot because I'm a surgeon, and that's what the job requires. None of that was about you. How can you say it's not about me when I find out from Brittany? Do you know how humiliating that was? I'm sorry you were embarrassed. But Vanessa, my life isn't about you. My choices aren't made to affect you one way or another. They're just my choices. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. I can't believe how selfish you've become. Selfish? The word stung, but I forced myself to stay measured. How is living my life privately selfish? Because family shares things. She was crying now, real tears this time. Family supports each other. Family celebrates together. You cut us out. You made me feel like an idiot for thinking I knew my own sister. Marcus put his arm around her, shooting me a look that clearly said I was the bad guy here. Mom jumped in. Your sister has a point, Maya. This isn't how family behaves. We tell each other about our lives. We share our joys and our successes. What you did was secretive and hurtful. I felt James's hand find mine under the table, a steady pressure that reminded me I wasn't alone. I understand you're hurt, I said, choosing my words carefully. But I need you to understand something too. My whole life, I felt like nothing I did was good enough unless it fit into this family's idea of what success should look like. Vanessa's choices were always celebrated, always valued, while mine were questioned or dismissed. I got tired of that. I got tired of defending my life to people who'd already decided I was doing it wrong. That's not fair, Mom protested. We've always supported you. Have you? I kept my voice even. Mom, at Vanessa's baby shower, you told me I needed to actually live. You said Vanessa had balance and I didn't. You've spent years implying that my career was something I did because I couldn't figure out what really mattered. So forgive me for not rushing to share the parts of my life that actually make me happy with people who've made it clear they don't value them. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad finally spoke up. Maya, we just want what's best for you. I know, Dad. But your idea of what's best and my idea of what's best don't always line up. And that's okay. But it means I'm going to make choices you might not understand or agree with. That doesn't make them wrong. So what now? Vanessa's voice was small. You just keep living your secret life, and we're supposed to be okay with that? It's not a secret life, I said for what felt like the 100th time. It's just my life, and I'm willing to share it with you, but only if you can respect that it's mine to share on my terms, not yours. James spoke up for the first time since the introductions. If I can say something? He waited until everyone's eyes were on him. I know I'm the outsider here, and I know this situation is complicated, but I want you to know that I love your daughter. I think she's extraordinary, not just because she's a brilliant surgeon, but because she's kind and principled and brave enough to live her life on her own terms. He looked around the table. She didn't hide me from you because I'm not good enough. She didn't tell you about our home because she was being cruel. She was protecting something precious to her from people who've spent a long time making her feel like her choices weren't valuable. And I understand why she felt she needed to do that. Vanessa's jaw tightened. So you're saying we're bad people? I'm saying that relationships are complicated, and sometimes people need space to figure out who they are outside of their family's expectations. Maya needed that space. I think she still needs it. Mom looked at me. Is that true? Do you need space from us? I took a breath. I need space from the constant judgment, from the comparisons, from feeling like I have to justify my life choices every time I see you. If you can give me that, then no, I don't need space from you. I'd love to have you in my life, but it has to be different than it's been. How? Dad asked quietly. You have to trust that I know what I'm doing, that my version of success is just as valid as Vanessa's, even if it looks completely different, that I can make good choices without your approval, that I'm happy, genuinely happy, even if my life doesn't look like what you thought it would. Vanessa was quiet, staring at her plate. Finally, she looked up at me. I do worry about you, you know. It's not all judgment. Sometimes I see how hard you work and I wonder if you're actually happy or if you're just busy enough to not notice you're not. It was the most honest thing she'd said all night, maybe in years. I am happy, I told her, genuinely. I love my work. I love James. I love the life we're building. It might not be what you'd choose, but it's right for me. She nodded slowly. Then, can I see it? The penthouse? I blinked, surprised. You want to see it? Yeah. I mean, if you're willing to let me in. I looked at James, who gave a small nod. Okay. Sure. How about this weekend? I'd like that. It wasn't a complete resolution. Mom still looked hurt. Dad still seemed confused, and there was a tension in the air that would take time to dissipate. But it was a start. As James and I drove home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. That went better than expected, James observed. The bar was pretty low, I admitted. But yeah, maybe it did. Your sister's Instagram post is gone, by the way. I checked while you were in the bathroom. Deleted. I pulled out my phone and looked. He was right. The long, emotional post about being hurt by family secrets had vanished. A text came through from Vanessa. Deleted the post. I was upset, but that wasn't fair to you. See you Saturday? I typed back, Saturday works. Thank you for deleting it. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. Vanessa came to visit the penthouse and spent 2 hours oohing over the view and asking about our furniture choices. She brought the baby when he was born, and I met my nephew, Marcus Jr., in our living room while James ordered Thai food. Mom and I started having coffee once a month, just the two of us. She was trying, in her way, to understand my life rather than judge it. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Dad started texting me articles about surgical innovations he'd read about, showing genuine interest in my work for the first time. But here's the thing, nobody tells you about standing up for yourself. Not everyone is going to understand. Not everyone is going to come around. About 6 months after that dinner, Vanessa called me crying again. But this time, it wasn't about me. Marcus had been having an affair with one of her influencer friends, ironically enough. The perfect life she'd been documenting online was falling apart, and she was terrified of what that meant. Not just for her marriage, but for her brand, her image, her carefully constructed narrative. I drove over to her apartment and sat with her while she cried. I didn't say I told you so about the fakeness of social media perfection. I didn't point out that maybe real life was messier than sponsored posts. I just sat with her. I don't know how to not be perfect, she admitted at one point. I don't know who I am if I'm not the one who has it all together. Maybe that's what you need to figure out, I said gently. Who you are when nobody's watching. When there's no camera, no audience, no pressure to perform. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. Is that what you did? When you didn't tell us about James and the penthouse? Figured out who you were without us watching? Yeah, I admitted. I guess it was. She nodded slowly. I think I need that. Some privacy. Some space to figure out what's real. I think that's wise. She separated from Marcus shortly after. The divorce was quiet, handled by lawyers, without the dramatic social media announcements her followers might have expected. She took a break from Instagram, then came back with a different kind of content. More honest, less curated, actually real. My relationship with my family isn't perfect now. Mom still makes comments sometimes about grandbabies. Dad still doesn't fully understand why I work such long hours. Vanessa and I are still figuring out how to be sisters outside of competition and comparison. But it's better. More honest. More real. James and I got married last spring in a small ceremony at the Penthouse. Just close friends and family. Vanessa was my maid of honor. Mom cried, but they were happy tears this time. Dad made a toast about how proud he was of both his daughters, each finding their own path. I'm still a surgeon. I still work long hours and miss family dinners sometimes. But now when I come home to a partner who sees me, a space we built together, and a life that's entirely ours. The best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's living so fully, so authentically, that their opinions simply stop mattering, and that's exactly what I did.